तो फिर आस्तीन कंधे तक चढ़ा के जिंदगी की जलती हुई भट्टी में हाथ डालने पड़ते।
Very true.
तो फिर काम करना पड़ता है।
Performing arts specifically remained largely reactive rather than transformative.
That's a difficult one. They've been reactive also and also been transformative. Sufis have done that, thinkers have done that, politicians have done that, giving a message. But we now know psychologically that in order for somebody to move emotionally, the message must be in some story. I'm not sure if censorship is to be blamed. It's a misconception. It's an easy thing to blame. Name 10 films that came out in the last 5 years. 10. You can't. 2 films that you can think of with one memorable dialogue.
Not a one.
Not one.
Hello and welcome to New Wave History. Today we are joined by a rare voice in Pakistan, a multi-talented artist, communicator, storyteller, and cultural custodian whose work bridges media, poetry, arts, theatre, and public discourse. Today we have with us Adeel Hashmi. Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Ji, walaikum assalam, and thank you for that wonderful, if not true, introduction.
No, it's true and you deserve much more. First question to you is that since independence, Pakistani cultural arts, from PTV dramas of the 1970s and 80s to the contemporary theatre, film, festivals, have shaped how the nation sees itself. For example, groups like Ajoka have tackled dictatorship and social justice, while plays like Waris, it had reflected class tensions and urban change. Given the historical pattern, how do you see Pakistani cultural arts today? Are they primarily reflecting the national identity or actively shaping it or redefining it?
Raza, are you under the impression that I am a historian about arts and dramatics and I am an important voice? I am not. I'm mere a spectator, a mere player in a very small field, the dramatics.
Yes.
But I have an opinion on it, and
Yes.
I've seen some evolution of it. First and foremost, nations generally have preferences. So they prefer, like India, the moment they got independence, they decided to have land reforms. And we didn't do that. They're very
Yes.
serious about their films. We weren't that serious. They were serious about dance. We weren't serious. So nations dramatically and culturally have preferences where they invest and they take into their own hands something. Sports, for instance, we were very serious about hockey and not so much about cricket, and then that shifted. So dramatics, I'm going to shift in Urdu and English, if that's
sure.
okay. So dramatics mein ye hua कि since the very beginning, in the 1950s, the great minds in this country, Faiz was one of them, was very critical and very nervous about where the performing arts and the dramatic arts were headed. And I remember he wrote a letter from jail in the early 50s to his wife, my grandmother Alice, saying that I was listening to Radio Pakistan and there was nothing but nonsense, my words, not his words. When will we present beautiful music to our people? This is Faiz writing in the 50s
True.
about Radio Pakistan. And then in the 70s, he drafted a cultural policy because he was of the opinion that dramatics plays an extremely important role in, like you said, shaping the identity, shaping the narrative, and of course a sense of belongingness and identity of a country. We didn't really do that. Acha, uska hua kya? Full marks to Ajoka and many other small, not companies really, but groups who have continued to struggle and protect some legacy. Okay, artists have done that, writers have done that, musicians have done that. We don't see any classical music anymore. We were fine 30, 40 years ago, and it's just dissipated. So we haven't really paid attention to it on an intellectual level, on the government level. And sadly now, when I say now, I mean the last 10, 20 years, the younger lot or the young parents are completely oblivious to the importance of dramatics and the impact of dramatics. Greek tragedies written 2,000 years ago are, earth-shattering. They're so beautiful. अभी तो शेक्सपियर की बात ही नहीं कर रहा, मीर गालिब की मैं बात ही नहीं कर रहा. अभी तो I'm looking at the ancient theatre. So it is a tragedy that what we've done with performing arts and drama and storytelling and poetry and dance and all of those things. Where are we headed? I don't know, but we have messed up big time. People in some groups, and I belong to one of those small groups, and there are other people who want to be in some capacity custodians of something so that they can put together something which is culturally enriching and exciting that people can see and get excited by. People are doing that. Literature festivals, book launches, Coke Studio to some extent, podcast to some extent. So there are little mushroom growths, but there's no
Massive.
there's no movement which comes together.
Okay. So we all will pay the cost in the longer run.
Or you already have.
Yeah.
Not in the longer run, you already have. Not you per se, not you the person,
Yeah.
but the generation.
Gee.
Because we, the younger lot, are unfamiliar with the poetry of the greats. They're unfamiliar with regional poetry. They're unfamiliar with painting. They're unfamiliar with sculpting. They're unfamiliar with printmaking. They're unfamiliar with flying kites, for instance, traditions. They're unfamiliar with music, much of it. So the price has already been paid.
Okay. And
I don't mean to sound morose and sad and a prophet of doom, but price has been paid.
And with the arrival of social media, with the digital transformation, the case is even more worse now. Because in Pakistan, especially, students and young people, they are just making TikToks and they're not paying heed to the real content, which obviously will cost them. Anyway, my next question to you is that given the role of literary festivals like the Faiz Festival in preserving and promoting the culture, for Faiz Festival is there for the last 10 years. It was first happened in 2015. How do you see such gatherings influencing society and historical memory? Can we also draw the parallels between the Faiz Festival and the Latin America's literary boom that happened in 1970s and 80s that was led by Gabriel Garcia Marquez and with, for example, the Harlem Renaissance?
I think one shouldn't jump the gun really, and one should keep things in perspective.
Okay.
That's very important. As of course, one's excited, but then there's also rationality and there's also ground realities. A slight distinction. So the literature festivals, there are several of them, are fantastic breeding grounds and fantastic places where people come together, exchange ideas, talk about books and literature and music and politics and all of those things. So that's great. So, but the Faiz Festival isn't a literature festival, and we curated that very wisely and very quickly. We didn't want it to be literature because literature and festival don't really mix together. Festival means festivity and drums and dancing and singing and whatnot.
Okay.
So we were very cautious initially when we were designing it. What soul do we want to give it? What shape do we want to give it? And it is a festival where people celebrate. And of course, Faisa was known to celebrate life even when he was in prison. That's fantastic because he is a poet and a custodian of hope. So that's how he lived his life, celebrating even the pains and the miseries. He would celebrate and he would keep his eyes fixed on hope and a brighter tomorrow. And that's what Faiz Festival is. So when I hear the term literature festival, the emotion that gets triggered in me, and that's just me, is it's not exciting enough. It's intellectually stimulating, granted. I'll meet intellectuals, granted. But I also want to enjoy and dance and laugh and have food and have drums and whatnot.
Okay.
Because we are a nation who enjoys festivity. Who doesn't? So that's that. So now having said that, we were curating the festival, the Faiz Festival, in the name of a man who had a multifaceted personality.
Okay.
He was extremely influential.
Gee.
He had a very strong ideology. How do you do that? Well, it's complex. And of course, we get things wrong. And that's fine. We can get things wrong, but we get many things right. And I think one thing that sets apart the Faiz Festival with other festivals is our canvas is much broader than most festivals. And I don't say that out of arrogance. I say that out of humility. And that's why we attract more criticism than other festivals.
True, very true.
And then we're fine with that as
Okay.
long as it's constructive. And so far, it hasn't been.
Yes.
So what does it do? Well, I can share a video with you of glimpses of people and see what it does to people. I think it changes people. And I think that is the job of any art form, any gathering, any conversation, any performance. You go into it and you come out enriched and different and changed. That's the attempt. And I think Faiz Festival has done that rather successfully. People go into a conversation, they go into an experience, they go into a performance, and they come out different and slightly more enriched and happier and full of hope. So that's what it's done.
Yes, and I have felt it because I have been there quite a few times, and I
Oh, well
felt
done.
the vibe.
Well done. In your young age, you have
Yeah,
wisdom
indeed.
beyond your years. Well done.
Thank you. So this leads me to another question, that in societies and in countries like Pakistan, where formal archives are weak and political histories are contested, for example, poetry has the power to become an alternative archive. So would you say that Faiz Festival has evolved into a kind of a living archive? Can we treat it as that?
I think that's slightly far-fetched, and that's not even the attempt. The attempt is not to write history or to document history or to archive history. The idea here is celebrate what we have, and we have a lot. So we get scholars, and we get speakers, and we get writers, and we get dancers, and we get commentators, and we get political analysts, and we get journalists, and they have a point of view about an idea, about an event. We try and get credible people. We try and get people who are solid in their research. They can make mistakes. So whether you want to use that platform for archiving,
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a huge claim. I'm not claiming that.
Okay.
I'm not claiming that. What I am claiming is it is a platform where conversations get started. It is a platform where marginally or not so marginal, controversial topics can be touched upon. It is a platform where a wide array of subjects can be talked about and celebrated and discovered. It is a platform where people disagree with each other and then sit down together and have a meal. We don't do that anymore. When we disagree, we don't talk to that person.
Okay.
Not at the Faiz Festival. We disagree and then we have a cup of tea together, and that's the way to do it. So I think it is the spirit of it more than using it as a platform to archive or document history.
Okay. So given your experience as a communications expert and a public speaker, you do understand the importance of storytelling and how it changes the past and the historical narratives, and it preserves history as well. So if we talk specifically about Pakistan, however, history is often manipulated or maneuvered over the years. And how do you think we can preserve the historical truth while making it accessible and meaningful to the people and the general audience, wider audience?
Okay, I'm not an expert in anything or of anything. I'm mere a player, a student of communication.
Okay.
So let's, and I don't claim and I don't attempt to preserve history as it is and ensure that it's not marred or colored. That's the job of professors and scholars and historians. It's their job to do that. Now, whether they've done that successfully or not, I don't know. I can't comment on that. I'm not a student of history. I tell stories, and my alleged expertise is if I have a thought in my mind and I want to craft it into words, what words do I use? What tone do I use to make it more effective? Another word for that is storytelling.
Ji.
That's very effective. And stories are more powerful than facts. We know that. Fictitious stories live on.
Yeah.
True facts,
Yes.
nobody's interested.
Yes.
I mean, they're true, but just not exciting enough. So I can't comment on your question, honestly.
But do you have an opinion as an expert, as a public speaker, as a person who has lived all his years in Pakistan? How can Pakistan or the people in Pakistan or the historians can preserve it with all the facts? With all the facts on paper? Matlab, why is it manipulated? How can we avoid that?
Okay, I think that's a very general, broad question. And I don't think that's entirely true now, because now, in the last 10, 20 years, now everyone has the tools to find the truth or the true history and make content. 30 years ago, nobody could do that. The state owned that. So they could dictate the narrative, they
Ji.
could dictate the syllabus in schools. Now, now the state has less control. So experts and historians and storytellers and podcasters and commentators have access to history or different aspects of history. So I think some of them are doing a really good job, because I won't name people, but they're doing a really good job in having conversations about the history of Pakistan and how we were told ABC, except that that wasn't the case. XYZ was the case. And now things are coming out. And we see Epstein files, we see books coming out, we see scholars writing rather freely about the history of Pakistan and the world. So I think now the content is there. How we shape that into a story, now that's a craft. That's a craft. Who does that? That's for them to decide.
So in one of your podcasts, you said that जो बात ह्यूमर से हो सकती है उसका लुत्फ़ ही कुछ और है. तो satire and humor in the history of each country have shaped the societies and how a society remembers its past and perceive power. For example, in 18th century England, satirical plays have questioned or exposed the political corruption. In your view, how does satire help or challenge the historical narratives, especially in the case of Pakistan, because there is social hypocrisy, political instability, economic problems, military involvement as well. How do you think satire can make it better, make the situation better? And are there any people who actively want to work on it?
Then all the political shows that you see where comedians are making fun of the police or the politicians or the cricketers or whoever, that's satire. Now, it may not be intellectually stimulating.
Yes, this is my point.
However, it is satire. It is a comment on something in a funny, witty, light-hearted way, except that that comment is sharp, and that comment comes from some tragedy where the cricket team has performed really badly, or the police has done something ridiculous, or the politicians have done something dumb. But that is satire. And it has a huge following. I mean, these satirical characters of today who sit in studios doing whatever they do, which is called Jugatbazi, they're hugely popular. They're now film stars. I'm on the censor board and I view films, and the Punjabi films, even films from India and Canada, have our stars in them. So they are very effective. So their voice is being heard. Now, how far-fetched that is, I don't know. However, earlier on, people like, our old friend and I'm a student, Farooq Kaisar, who created or rather curated Uncle Sargam and the Puppets in Pakistan. He would comment on something which was fantastic. Then my uncle, Adeel Hashmi, who was actually, he started the children's program in Pakistan, Sachgap and Akkad Bakkad, which were hugely popular, hugely interesting, hugely intellectually stimulating, hugely intelligent, and they won international awards. Now, to argue that intellect is missing, I would grant you that. But people make reels. Some of them are rather clever. Now, there is such a bombardment and such an explosion of content. Everyone is making content. Everyone. So to find sane voices, to find humor or satire or wit that really, sits well with you, that's going to be hard. But that's not because satire is not being made. It is because, it is engulfed in so much more nonsense. But there are intelligent people doing satire.
But my point is that it is not reaching the wider audience. For example, the students in the universities and colleges, they really look down upon even the audience of those plays, satirical shows. Mm-hmm. They look down upon that. Mm-hmm. Why is it so? How can we improve it? And how can knowledgeable and learned people play their part in spreading it?
Okay.
Or making things better. For example, there is political instability in Pakistan, economic issues, there are social hypocrisies. I really want satire to play a very important role in making them better or criticizing them thereby.
I think you're overestimating the reach of a genre called satire. It's like I want to bring a revolution with my bare hands. Okay, I can't do that. Okay, so every genre, every art form, every group of people, like students, and they have a certain reach beyond which they can't go. Whose responsibility is it primarily that good content reaches the students? Is it just the responsibility of the teachers or the content makers, or is it the responsibility of the students? Now, the students have WhatsApp accounts, and students have Instagram accounts, and students know where to go. They know everything. If they choose to view or review or watch nonsense, it is not anybody else's responsibility to make them watch sensible things. It is their own responsibility. It is like looking after my body and my mind. Who will do that? I will do that. So if I am hell-bent upon watching nonsense and eating nonsense, my body will go down slowly. So it is really up to the younger lot, or students in this case. They must be very choosy and clever about what they consume mentally. My son, for instance, he's 16, okay? You can't make him eat McDonald's. You can't make him drink a cola drink. You can't make him miss his gym.
Okay.
So when a young person of 16 decides something, they can do it. So similarly, people like you and I and many other people, we can't choose what content anyone would watch. It is their own choice. So half, if not more, responsibility lies on them, not on the content creators. The content is there somewhere. I don't know where, but it's there somewhere. It's available. Books are there. Humorous books are there. Witty books are there. Self-help books are there. Podcasts are there. Researches are there. Programs are there. People can consume whatever they choose to. What they choose to do that, well, good luck. Good luck with that. I think, however, having said that, I think sensible people, and the world belongs to the sensible people, have already organized themselves in little groups where they protect themselves from consuming nonsense and looking for, cutting through the clutter and looking for something which is useful and interesting and intelligent and stimulating and clever and witty and satirical. So there's not much that, communication is a two-way street. So a communicator can't really communicate until the person who's being communicated to also plays a role. So you can't thrust upon a certain type of content to people. They have to want it.
बट डू यू नॉट थिंक कि एक एनवायरनमेंट क्रिएट करना पड़ता है जो कि आपके प्रोफेसर्स करते हैं, हिस्टोरियंस करते हैं, स्टेट भी करता है काफ़ी हद तक, लेकिन पाकिस्तान इज़ नॉट, और द गवर्नमेंट और द any person, for instance, I believe that nobody is taking the responsibility in Pakistan. No, कोई ग्रुप नहीं ले रहा, प्रोफेसर्स नहीं ले रहे. हर यही बात है कि ठीक है कि टू ईच हिज ओन, जिसका जो दिल करे वो करे, वही देखे, लेकिन एक एनवायरनमेंट तो क्रिएट करना पड़ता है ना, जिसमें किसी इंसान को या स्टूडेंट्स को सोचने पर मजबूर किया जाए दैट व्हाट इज़ राइट एंड व्हाट इज़ रॉन्ग, आर यू स्टैंडिंग एट द राइट साइड ऑफ द हिस्ट्री और नॉट. तो व्हाट इज़ योर टेक ऑन दैट?
Granted, the environment plays an extremely important role. जो माहौल है, it is an extremely important character in a play. आपका मेरा एक खेल चल रहा है. Let's say we're in the middle of a theatrical performance. The environment is also a quiet player within the scene. Granted, it's not being taken seriously. Granted, and then what? I grant you that. And people are doing good work in little pockets, and I wish it was more, granted. But LUMS and Khud University and Shaukat Khanam and Indus Hospital and many other spring to mind are little organizations doing really good work with really high standards in what they do, and many others. And the government isn't doing that, granted, but government never did that. Who else? Media? Sure, media is generally speaking, media in this country, or mainstream media in this country, is quite rubbish. Not sure that's not true in India or in the US. It's probably true there also, but granted, it's not their responsibility to make sure the society is on the right path. That's not what media does. Media makes money. Media sells things. That's the job of media. Not saying that should be the job, but that's the job. That's what they do. They sell a commodity called news. That's what they sell. So your attention is what they want, irrespective of how they get it. So who is not taking the job seriously? I'm not sure. The government has bigger issues. The media, they are making a lot of money. Who else? I think one failure in this structure, on this symphony, is of the parents also. When I meet younger parents, not young parents, I find them, generally speaking, really, really silly, really idiotic, and really without vision. They are caught up in a rat race. They speak to their children in some strange language.
Yeah.
They don't read to their children. Children who go to private schools in Lahore, Islamabad, Karachi, they don't do carpooling.
Yes.
And from the same street, 5 children would go to the same school in 5 cars. They don't sit together generally to have meals without phones. So really basic stuff that parents have gotten wrong. So I think parents also play an important role.
And they also are disinterested in making their children's lives better in an intellectual way.
I know very few parents who read or who listen. They want to talk, rubbish, and they want to share reels, rubbish. But very few of them who want to read and understand how parenting is done. Not that I'm a good parent, or what's going on in the world, or what's going on inside my head, or what's going on in the universe. I find, people generally not curious enough. And that's a huge thing in this country. People are not curious generally.
Yes. Can you please give me 2 or 3 suggestions for the media to make itself better?
I can't.
Just 2 or 3. Because obviously people or voices like you can play a part.
Okay, let's go deeper into it. What do you mean better? What do you mean by better?
By imparting good content that makes the society better, that make the consciousness of people better, that can trigger people to think what is right, and how to look at things, give them perspectives. Because all of this, I guess, will make an individual better. If
of course they will. I think overall, and I'm just going to generalize here, I think overall, the intellect level has really plummeted in this country in the last 30, 40 years. Some years ago, our writers were writers. They had read a lot. They knew people. They knew life. They knew the language. They knew the sensitivity of relationships. So when they wrote something. I think, generally speaking, and the directors in old PTV plays, they had read theatre and film scripts, and they had done theatre, and they knew acting, and they knew the language, and they knew poetry, and they knew history. I think, generally speaking, I can't say that about most, if not many, directors and writers of today. I don't think they know the craft. I guess in their defense, why do they need to know the craft if whatever they know is selling? So what can the media do? Well, I think to begin with, have different, interesting, deeper stories. I think that's one. I don't watch television. I don't watch narrative television. I am snooty. That's one reason. But it's really boring. That's another reason. So I think our storytelling has generally gone down. The viewership has gone up, granted. The product is more expensive now. Actors get well paid now than 20 years ago, 30 years ago when I used to make dramas. Granted that. But I think the depth is not there. I don't think the lack of depth has occurred only in dramas. I think that's an age that we live in. We live in an age where nobody searches for depth anymore.
We're living in the winter of the world.
It's everybody wants to rush forward and not deeper.
True.
At all. I think that's generally, we live in interesting times. Generally, we live in terrible times intellectually. So I think that's what people are doing. So the viewers are doing that, the writers are doing that, the actors are doing that, the directors are doing that. There's no intensity really. And one reason for that is the complexity of storytelling, the layers of storytelling. A, we don't have artists to curate that, and B, we don't have the audience to appreciate that. Then why would somebody want to make a story which is layered and complicated and fun that way? So I think it's like, taking Urdu out of Lucknow and Delhi and taking that language to another city. So if something stems from the soil and you take away the soil, then that plant is not going to flourish anymore. It'll be a different plant, some other plant, but not that plant. So I think that's what happened. So what should the media do? Well, stop. First of all, stop doing what you're doing. No, I'm just kidding. I have many friends in the media. They won't like it. I think dig deeper slightly. And depth is exciting. And I'm not saying go for, mind-bending philosophical content. I'm not saying that. But push the boundaries, as it were. I think that would be very interesting. That would be very interesting. I don't think media does that anymore.
Yes.
I don't think it pushes the boundaries in a good way.
I also have heard many famous producers saying this blatantly into the face that they do not want to impart better content. They just want to entertain people, however, and they want to make money. They are just openly saying it without any remorse or without, feeling the responsibility of it. And जहाँ तक आपने बात कही कि people should also be able to consume the better content. लोग consume ही नहीं करते, वो बनाते नहीं है. तो personally, I believe कि अगर वो बनाए, for example, a few people in the industry like Sultana Siddiqui, she's playing her part by making a few stories जो उन्होंने recently भी एक trilogy बनाई थी, जो कि अगर ऐसा content बनना शुरू हो जाए तो लोग उसको consume करेंगे और उससे सीखेंगे और उनके दिमाग खुलेंगे, क्योंकि दिमाग भी इतने बंद हैं लोगों के पाकिस्तान में कि वो बस एक वही है ना भेड़ चाल चलते हैं. तो इसलिए मुझे लगता है कि ये आप जैसे लोग पैगाम दे सकते हैं इंडस्ट्री के लोगों को कि वो एक बेटर कंटेंट बनाएं, एक वैसा माहौल बनाएं, लोगों को कंज्यूम ही ना करने दें बाकी जो कि एक लो किस्म का कंटेंट है. तो उससे मतलब अपना अपना रोल प्ले करना है ना, ताकि आप अपनी हिस्ट्री को बेहतर बना सकें, अपनी हिस्ट्री को अच्छे से लोगों को समझा सकें. तो आई गेस मीडिया हैज़ अ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट रोल, क्योंकि सारी कंजम्पशन ही अब सोशल मीडिया और ये डिजिटल ट्रांसफॉर्मेशन ने सारी लर्निंग ही इसके थ्रू कर दिया है.
दिमाग खुलने का मुझे नहीं मालूम क्या मतलब होता है कि दिमाग खुले. हर किसी ने रोल प्ले करना है, हर कोई रोल प्ले कर रहा है अपनी ज़िंदगी का. अब वो आपकी या मेरी मर्जी के मुताबिक रोल प्ले नहीं कर रहा, रोल तो प्ले कर रहा है, क्योंकि वो जो भी डायरेक्टर प्रोड्यूसर है जिसका आपने कहा कि उसने तो बस पैसे ही कमाने हैं, तो चलो उसने पैसे कमाने और पैसे कमा के वो घर जा रहे हैं और घर में अपने बच्चे की फीस दे रहे हो, तो उसमें क्या प्रॉब्लम है? व्हाट्स उसने कोई इनकलाब का झंडा तो नहीं उठाया हुआ. उसने तो ये तय नहीं किया कि मैं इनकलाब लेके आऊँगा लोगों के जहनों में, ये तो नहीं कहा उसने. उसने कहा मैं कुछ बनाऊँगा कैमरे से लेके, या कुछ लिखूँगा या अदाकारी करूँगा, और वो बहुत से लोग देखेंगे और देखने के बाद लोग सो जाएंगे आराम से और मैं पैसे लेके घर चला जाऊंगा.
तो उससे जो बुरा इम्पैक्ट क्रिएट होगा उसके लिए फिर आंसरेबल कौन है?
ओके, लेट मी फ्लिप दैट एज अपोज्ड टू कि उससे जो बुरा इम्पैक्ट क्रिएट होगा, वी कांट मेजर दैट रियली कि हुआ भी है कि नहीं हुआ, तो अगर उससे बुरा इम्पैक्ट होगा तो मिशन इम्पॉसिबल में जब गाड़ियाँ जलती हैं और बम फटते हैं तो उससे भी बुरा इम्पैक्ट होता है. हाँ भाई, वी कांट रियली आर्ग्यू दैट, बट हियर्स अनदर वे टू लुक एट इट, व्हिच इज हाउ अबाउट वी फ्लिप इट, व्हिच इज कि so I have the attention of X number of people, and I can tell them a story or show them a story which will really impact them, and they will like, "Arey yaar, wow," and then they can take something from that story and then change the way they behave in the society. That's interesting. That's a good challenge to do or to accept. मैंने 1990s में एक ड्रामा देखा था अलहमरा की स्टेज के ऊपर, और कोई 150-200 लोग थे, क्योंकि छोटा सा हॉल है अलहमरा का, छोटा वाला हॉल था, उसमें एक ड्रामा हो रहा था. और वो ड्रामा एक पुराना यूनानी ड्रामे की उर्दू की एक परफॉर्मेंस थी.
ठीक है.
तो जिसमें एक किरदार थी लड़की जो जेल में थी और एक बादशाह था, और वो जो जेल में लड़की है उसकी बेटी है, लेकिन चूंकि उसने जुर्म किया है बेटी ने, तो बादशाह ने कहा कि जुर्म तो जुर्म होता है, तो वो जेल में ही रहेगी. तो वो जेल में थी, तो बादशाह ने कहा कि तुम माफ़ी मांग लो तो तुम्हें मैं छोड़ देता हूँ. तो उसने कहा मैं तो माफ़ी नहीं मांगूंगी क्योंकि मैंने गलत कुछ नहीं किया। अब ये है, और वो जो बात थी वो दोनों, बादशाह भी ठीक कह रहा था और लड़की भी ठीक कह रही थी। अब ये सीन है दोनों में, और वो टस से मस नहीं हो रही लड़की, और बादशाह की चूंकि वो बेटी भी है तो उसका दिल भी दुख रहा है, लेकिन वो चूंकि बादशाह भी है तो उसने इंसाफ का भी अलम बुलंद रखना है। तो बादशाह बिलाखिर उससे कहता है कि तुम्हें मालूम है कि तुम बार बार ना क्यों कहती हो? तो वैसे अपने बाप को देखती है और कहती है क्यों? तो बादशाह कहता है क्योंकि जब हाँ कहते हैं तो फिर आस्तीन कंधे तक चढ़ा के जिंदगी की जलती हुई भट्टी में हाथ डालने पड़ते हैं।
वेरी ट्रू।
तो फिर काम करना पड़ता है।
वेरी ट्रू।
इसलिए ना करना आसान होता है
बहुत ज़्यादा।
अब ये एक जुमला है, इसको 30 साल हो गए और मेरे यहाँ पे नक्श है और ये खेल खेला जा रहा है।
बहुत खूबसूरत जुमला है
यहाँ, और इसने मेरी जिंदगी बदल दी कि अब जब भी कोई चैलेंज या कोई डिफिकल्टी या तकलीफ सामने आएगी तो ना कर लेना है बस, या फिर हाँ करना है और आस्तीन चढ़ानी है। अब कितनी ये पावरफुल बात है ये,
बहुत ज़्यादा।
सो वो जो आपकी बात है कि इससे जो नुकसान पहुंच रहा है, let that be. We can flip it and see, I can create an impact where people will change or something will change somewhere, and I must not miss out on that opportunity. So when I look at people at a podium or with a mic or at a podcast and they don't say something interesting, like I'm not saying something interesting, I look at it as a wasted opportunity, which is also a waste. There was an opportunity.
Okay.
Like एक अच्छी सी बॉल मिले क्रिकेट में,
Okay.
और आप
And you
बजाय
missed it.
छक्का मारने के आप जाया कर दें,
हाँ।
तो नुकसान तो हुआ कि नहीं हुआ? रे यार, there was an opportunity to score and we didn't score. अरे. So that's where my heart bleeds. That's what happens to me. So I think that's another way to look at it, where, and not just the media, but also everywhere there is an opportunity to create a moment that somebody will see or observe and they can be moved by it. By, you park your car, on a side, you let somebody pass and then you wave them and they see, and that's nice. He will say, yeah. So actually people do give way in this country. You let somebody pass before you do. You help a lady cross the street, or you help somebody with their bag or whatever. That's nice also. So I look at it that way. Last sentence, which is, and the way to do it is not by giving a message. That's the least effective way to give a message. Prophets have done that, Sufis have done that, thinkers have done that, politicians have done that, giving a message. But we now know psychologically that in order for somebody to move emotionally, the message must be in some story.
Yes.
Where it touches the heart,
Yes.
and not the mind. Mind is fine. I'm all for the mind. It touches here.
True.
So that requires craft.
I agree.
And depth.
Yes.
You can't do that without depth.
Yes. Okay, so the extension of the same discussion, do you believe that storytelling through film and theatre preserves a deeper or more human version of history than textbooks itself? Because textbook का जो थोड़ा सा इम्पैक्ट है, आप बताएं कि स्टोरी टेलिंग अगर थिएटर और फिल्म से हो तो क्या वो बेहतर होती है और डीपर अंडरस्टैंडिंग क्रिएट करती है?
I think there's no question about that. Anything which is seeped and cocooned in a story, in effective story, is way deeper and way more memorable and may last longer than a dry, boring, fact-based textbook paragraph. Absolutely, yes.
Okay. Pakistani television and theatre, especially from the 1980s, have oscillated between censorship and subtle resistance. You have chaired the Punjab Film Censor Board as well. Dramas have addressed class divides. For example, like मुझे याद पड़ता है खुदा की बस्ती, जिस तरह के dramas हैं. Gender politics, sectarian tensions, and sometimes indirectly, sometimes boldly. Looking at the trajectory of Pakistani media from state-controlled to today's digital fragmentation, I would say. Do you think performing arts in Pakistan have remained, specifically, remained largely reactive rather than transformative?
That's a difficult one. They've been reactive also, and also been transformative. People have seen Andhera Ujala, for instance. People have seen Khuda Ki Basti, Ek Mohabbat Sau Afsane, and Varis, and Teen Bada Teen for that matter, and 50-50. That's also drama. That's also resistance, where they show funny things. There was a skit in 50-50 where, and this is way before security became a concern for the world, which was after 9/11. I'm talking about late 80s or mid 80s. And a car which has a cannon on its roof installed goes past a security checkpost, and the police guy opens the doors and searches for weapons inside the car and misses out on the cannon on the roof. That's a fantastic comment on missing out on the obvious.
Yeah.
And we as a nation are champions of this, getting the bigger picture wrong and focusing on some minuscule, ridiculous issue and turning it into a big issue, whereas miss out on like something really important.
True.
So whether we have been reactive, I don't know if reactive is a word, but people, the word is resistance. So people have resisted in strange ways, in humorous ways, in tragic ways, where they've commented on it. Initially, when the media was state-owned, and only state-owned, there was little breathing space.
Yeah.
I know because I was a witness to it.
Okay.
Now, we can breathe freely, except that we haven't really produced something remarkable. So I'm waiting for the day where something remarkable, something which is worthy of an international platform is produced by Pakistan, where we win several Oscars, or, we make a film like David Lean made. I think David Lean made Gandhi, for instance.
Yeah.
And I think Jameel Dehelvi made Jinnah. But we really haven't done that.
Do you see it happening in Pakistan anytime soon in the future?
Well, I hope so.
We're just hoping.
Whether I see it happening or not is another matter, but I hope so. Maybe somebody somewhere is working on something which is remarkable. We don't know.
And then it gets banned.
That's factually incorrect. Because I need to correct you when you're factually incorrect. Name 5 things in the last 50 years that got banned. 5. And that's one thing a decade. Name 5.
Initially, that got banned, I would say, were Joyland, Chudels, Zindagi Tamasha, Barzakh. And I do agree that there was controversial content in them.
I'm not sure about the first 2 because I haven't seen them.
Okay.
I've seen Sarma's movie, which wasn't banned. Let's assume for a minute that all these 4 movies, one of them was not banned because I was a chairman.
Okay.
It was cleared. And there was some political problem. It wasn't banned. It wasn't allowed to play in the theaters, granted, but it wasn't banned. Imagine if these 4 movies were released. Would these 4 movies change the fabric of society? Unlikely.
Yeah, not really.
Unlikely.
Yeah.
Which means, theoretically, in your words, that censorship isn't a problem. That's not the problem. That's not holding us back.
Okay.
If you had named 100 movies,
Okay, then what? It was.
then I would have said, you know what, we have a huge problem because every other movie gets banned. And those movies, when released in India, they do record business, and look what censorship is doing. That hasn't happened. So I'm not sure if censorship is to be blamed. It's a misconception. It's an easy thing to blame. But since I was in the midst of things, we don't get any content. Name 10 films that came out in the last 5 years. 10. You can't. Name 2 films that you can think of with one memorable dialogue.
Not a one.
Not one. Name 1 film song in the last 10 years that you sing.
No, not at all.
Name 1 song.
I don't.
So
I can't.
so that's one problem where our work, film work, is not memorable.
Yeah.
End of story.
Yes.
Where's the censorship here? Where are the dialogues? Where are the characters? Where are the songs? Where are the scenes? Where's all of that? Why aren't our young people dancing on Pakistani pop music from film? And why do they have to do dance on Indian songs? Where's the censorship here? So I think, generally speaking, and I say this with ache in my heart and a tear in my eye, the filmmakers, and I'm a part of that community, or was a part of that community, have let us down, really. Because we have the cinemas, and we had, until some years ago, the audience was ready to support the cinema.
Yes.
They would go to, Pakistani film hai, maine dekhni hai.
Yes.
Okay? So we really haven't made any films. So there's nothing that we have done really. So we can't
So
blame
bigger
anybody.
responsibility lies with the writers who do not read and make an effort to write better.
No, I don't think we can do that. I think that's another easy way out. कि writer नहीं है यार. I don't think that's true. We don't know how many good scripts there were. It's the director, if it's the actors. We don't have stars really. Name 5 stars who have the power to pull in the audience. Name 5 in Pakistan.
Contemporary stars.
Obviously,
The superstars in Pakistan right now that I can say pull the audience effectively are Bilal Abbas Khan, Fawad Khan, Sabah Qamar. There are not any other names coming into my mind.
there's
So-
a huge difference. And name 3 movies of each of these stars which was a blockbuster.
Bilal Abbas Khan, no movie. Fawad Khan, I don't.
A blockbuster in Pakistan, 3.
One is Maula Jat.
All right.
I can't think
Okay,
of
name 2.
any other.
You see, so look at the numbers.
Yeah.
Look at the numbers.
This is very
Now,
sad to talk about even.
You see, so one needs to see things from a rather objective perspective also. Now, taking nothing away from these people because these people are stars in India. That's no joke. So the problem isn't a writer, neither is it the actor. It is we haven't built the momentum of the cinema. Indians have done that for the last 100 years. They have channels and they have publications and they have magazines and they have gossips and they have God knows what. So they keep building, the image and stardom of their stars. Their stars are not Indian stars. They're global stars. Our stars aren't global stars. I wish they were, but they're not. So we haven't really done anything to build them. Why is that? That's another debate. But that's the sad part of it. So what I'm saying is, so when you say it's the writers, it's not the writers really. How many terrible, terrible Indian films do you know which are blockbusters? Hundreds. Really bad films.
Yes.
Really shitty films. So
Yes.
they're blockbusters. Fine. Because they have some dance and some song and some
Thing which,
whatever. So we haven't really done that. I don't know why that is. You'll need to get a cinema expert to comment on that. But that's one thing. So you can't blame writers per se.
Okay. So this leads me to my last question that
Thank God for that. No, I'm
looking
kidding with
at how other countries like the UK, France, US, India, they handle film and media regulation. What lessons could Pakistan learn from them? Because obviously as a chair, you know what is happening in other countries and what Pakistan can essentially and actively make an effort, put an effort to learn from them to make its cinema better.
Cinema.
And also, for example, Pakistan can aim to balance out the creative freedom, the cultural preservation and social responsibility, all 3 of them, because other countries are doing it.
I have no idea what part 2 of your question means. I have no idea.
Okay.
I'll attempt to answer part 1. What can we do in film? So what you can't have is a dramatic feel like film, for instance, work and flourish in isolation. It's like, what can I do where my eyes are really sharp, but my body's dead? Okay, the eyes are a part of the entire body. So the entire body, or mostly, has to work for your eyes to work. So in Pakistan, if we don't have theatre, we really can't have films. So they go rather hand in hand. Rather.
True.
Indian theatre actors are brilliant.
Very.
They have, if I remember correctly, more than 4,000 in India, 4,000 registered theatrical clubs. 4,000. I think they now crossed that. This is some
Huge
years
number.
ago. Look at the British theatre. It's brilliant. Look at the American theatre. It's brilliant.
True.
Okay? So we haven't done that. So dramatics can't work in isolation. So music and drama and film and theatre, they're kind of a part of the same community because they're connected. Where will you get the singers or the dancers or the actors or the writers or cinematographers or producers? Where will you get them? So it is a huge part of one ecosystem. We don't have that. Where do we start? I don't know. Teach thy tongue to say, I don't know. Because we have NAPA, the National Academy of Performing Arts, set up by my Ustad Zia Saab. So they've done little good work in isolation, granted, but little good work. And then Ajoka is one, they're doing good work. some other, you see good theatrical productions once a year that travel to Lahore, Karachi, Islamabad. Monkey Business was one of them, and there are little mushrooms here and there, but there's no movement really. There's no movement really. It hasn't come together. The sponsors and the theaters and the government NOCs and the actors and the commitment and the audiences, and they haven't really gelled together yet.
So the first step is this, gelling together.
I guess. I don't know how that will happen, but I guess. And that's for the younger people to do. It's not for an old fossil like me to comment on it. It's for younger people who are in their late teens, early 20s.
Do you have a suggestion for the younger lot? Where do they start? Just
where do they start being an artist?
No, not being an artist. Primarily being an artist, but how can they promote theatre? How can they make better theatrical plays? Because I know Islamabad mein theatres jo hain, they are doing well, and Ajoka, for instance, in Lahore. But how can they make things better for themselves? Just randomly, tell me your suggestion.
Okay, the absolute first thing to be an actor, whether you're a theatre actor or television or film, is to know, why am I doing this? So if you're doing it for the money or for the fame or for the clap, then that's a really bad motivation to do it. You must do it because you love doing it. You love doing the process of it. You're going through how it changes you, what you experience. That has to be the primary reason. And it's difficult for younger people. Difficult. Practically impossible.
In this age especially.
In this day and age where they are not influenced by the likes and the hearts and the claps and the comments and the selfies.
Very true.
And to stay true to their art form, whatever art form that is. So I think for any artist for that matter, and it doesn't have to be an actor or theatre person, could be any artist or any professional for that matter, I think going down into looking into, why am I doing this? And the answer must be, because I love doing it. That has to be the first and foremost reason.
Okay.
And then comes the success or the failure of it. And that becomes rather secondary. Not saying it's not important, but rather secondary. But must not be primary.
It shouldn't bother them.
Well, it does bother people. Actors get bothered by their failures and by the success. That's fine. Getting bothered is fine. But don't move the goalpost. Why do I do this? Why am I doing this podcast? How much am I getting paid for it? Nothing. And why am I doing it? Because I love a conversation. Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it's not. When it's not, I can't throw up my hand and say, I will not do it again.
Yes, you will not change your trajectory.
Because I love doing it. I love hearing questions. I love asking questions. I love exchanging ideas. I learn new things. I learn new phrases, new words. I love that.
Okay.
Sometimes it's fun. Sometimes bloody painful. So that's my why, as Simon Sinek says. So the artist needs to know exactly what's your why. So if the why is external, well, good luck, because you're going to be miserable.
Yeah.
If the why is internal and saying, because I love it, I love discovering something, then that's the first step.
Okay. So thank you so much, sir.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
There is so much to learn from you and your family. And we hope this conversation inspires our audience to learn not just from textbooks, but from performances, voices, and stories that can shape our collective imagination.
And I shall be here whenever you ask me to.
Thank you for watching. We do look forward to welcoming you again very soon.